Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is Austin here, coming at you with some StarCraft 2 commentary after yet another extended hiatus. This particular match is taking place on Catalina, and it's between Yowie Flashwolf's PartinG, the red Protoss at the top right, and then Classic, who I believe is a part of SK Telecom T1, if I am not mistaken. I am rather rusty on these pieces of information, as it has been some time since I last recorded a commentary. This particular match is from IEM Taipei, which is this season. It was in February, just a couple of months ago. I got my hands on the replay pack earlier today, and it is part of the quarterfinals. This is game number 3 between the two. I will note that PartinG had a 2-0 lead coming into this game. So, why, you may ask, am I doing this commentary suddenly after such a long period of time away from video making? And my answer is life circumstances in general prevented me from continuing to cast past late summer or midsummer when I was using my laptop. I am happy to say that I am now the owner of a custom built PC of which I bought all the parts on my own and put them together. So it is quite the machine. I've got an R9 280 card in there from AMD Radeon. It is the Gigabyte model. I don't remember all the specs and whatnot. It was some time ago that I put this all together. But I figured this computer can more than handle the strains of StarCraft 2. I have it running on Extreme right now as opposed to Medium that I could record under before. And I haven't noticed the same choppiness I used to have. Hopefully that will remain the same. I mean, the fraps mostly is determined by the strength of the hard drive, but I should not have any issues. If I do, of course, I will react accordingly. But I figured I'd put out a commentary this far away from my last one, simply because now I feel like the visual quality of my videos is high enough for me to actually be looking forward to making them. And also I realized after so many months away that casting is something I do enjoy doing. StarCraft 2 is a game I particularly enjoy, and with Legacy of the Void cropping up, that the beta testing is out now, I figured I might as well get back into it, if even just for my own purposes. Of course, I enjoy the viewers' attention all the same, however little or medium amounts of it I do get. And I said, why not? I do still have final exams, so for the next couple of weeks I will be occupied. But beyond that, I feel like I'll have enough free time to put out videos on a regular basis. No promises, of course. I'm not going to go around saying expect a video every day or expect a video every week beyond May 22nd. But reasonably, I think it may happen. I think I may reach a certain consistent schedule, and I think should I be able to, I could probably push the quality of my content to the next level I've been looking for the past while now, and actually reach a point of regular content. This is, of course, very premature, these aspirations, but one never truly knows what may come of a certain goal that they establish. So anyway, getting into the specifics of this game, do forgive me, I am quite rusty, because I have not just skipped casting for the past 7 or 8 months, or almost even a year now. It's been 10 months. It has also just been playing StarCraft 2. It's really been limited, unfortunately, in the past while as a result of my schooling. I've been in college now as opposed to high school, and so the level of education is just higher, and the strenuousness and difficulty of this education is on the next level. So it does require me to focus with a little bit more voraciousness and determination than I ever have before, and so that is the reason that I will be a little bit off in this game, but I am still versed enough in the specifics of StarCraft to tell you that PartinG is going for an early Stargate, which is not entirely uncommon in Heart of the Swarm from what I do remember of my playing it. He will likely get a Phoenix out to try to have some fun with Phoenixes. Who does not like that? Whereas it looks like Classic is going for that, what do we call it? Twilight Council. Oh, it's a sad day indeed when I don't remember the name of that building. And this could possibly infer a Dark Templar opening, but it could equally so mean that he is just simply going for early blink play, which he is. He's getting that blink right now, and the Mothership Core does recall after 2 probes were killed of PartinG. So he's part of Yowie Flashwolves now, which is a Taiwanese team, I do believe, so this would be on his own turf. We do have that Warp Gate tech coming in first from PartinG, but it looks like the Classic is microseconds in tow, and his Oracle is still on its way. So he's going to go for some Oracle play with that. Well, it's the second Oracle that was coming out, mind you. The first one had already spawned. He's going for the second Oracle here, and there is a command that could actually follow this if I remembered it. There we go. And he's now going to just put a little bit of a RAS on, but Classic was expecting this. He did see the Stargate with that scouting Mothership Core. So while 3 probes were killed, it's not going to make a massive difference in the long term, because Classic was aware of it. When you put a certain amount of minerals and gas into a tech and your opponent has seen it coming, it completely negates it. And I feel like if he plays it right with his micro, he may well be able to make use of this, but it doesn't look like he will quite do that. 5 probes have been killed, but ultimately he loses that Oracle, and they are fairly gas expensive. So I don't think that was justified on the whole from PartinG. I think he was just trying to poke out at his opponent and just see what he could do with a little bit of harassment. Why not? Because if it does succeed, it can very well win you the game right out of the gate. And a lot of less experienced players than somebody like Classic could very well fall to that. And here is that second Oracle now coming in. But Classic is just, he's not necessarily flinching here. He's seen it the first time, he expects it a second time. I don't think beyond this that PartinG will necessarily get any more Oracles. He realizes it's for naught. There is a 4-stalker push here coming out of Classic, but PartinG is ready for that. He has a couple of stalkers, a couple of sentries, and he could even force field these stalkers in. I did forget they do have blinks, so that is not quite an option. He's getting a zealot out, which was promptly kited by the blink stalkers, who now have a sentry to support. And it looks like this offensive from Classic may very well go in his favor, because he's able to use that blink contrary to PartinG, and that was a major drawback of the red Protoss player taking that Oracle tech, is that he forewent any sort of ground unit technology. He does now have the Immortal though, so he has something to fall back on in terms of that robotics facility that is not reciprocated by Classic, who himself is expanding on the back of this aggression. So first, PartinG has to actually get himself out of this hole, because this could very well mean the end of the game this early on. He does have that photon overcharge on his Nexus. Oh, I see, it's rusty. I'm just brushing off the dust and rust off of my my memory of different abilities and units. The photon overcharge helps to repel the Stalker Sentry Force, and it doesn't look like it'll be a major issue for PartinG to survive. But economically speaking, the harvesters are even. Okay, so this is not nearly as big of an issue as I thought it was. Classic is simply bottoming up his opponent, but on the whole has not done too much damage. The unit's lost tab is, I'm going to have to check. It is Control R. Again, hotkeys as well. So 9 workers have been killed out of PartinG. So overall, with his Oracle harassment, he has done more damage, and he is going to bring it in here now just to try to scout out that second base. And so even though he's on the defensive, PartinG is able to establish a second base economy. Now, one of his Immortals is going to be focused down here by this Blink Stalker Force, and it will promptly die. The second Immortal seems to be enough to repel the Stalker Force, but that's a problem here, because PartinG is simply not yet out of this siege. He still has to rally enough soldiers to be able to actually break it. And I do use the word soldiers because I've been watching and playing the Game of Thrones Telltale series, but this is besides the point. We have another push here. Force fields coming out of both sides. Classics are largely unsuccessful. PartinG is able to keep his opponent off the ramp, so I would think he came out on top of that. This Oracle just constantly, seemingly on patrol, and he's able to use that, I don't remember the ability's called, but it does reveal those buildings and what they're producing. There's the second Immortal going down, but the third one is out from PartinG. He has only a couple of Stalkers. The Blink Stalkers are just relentless from Classic, so that was an excellent investment out of him. That is a proper tech choice. But overall, he's not done that much damage. He has killed a lot of military units, but no economic damage, because he just simply cannot get behind those mineral lines. He doesn't have a War Prism. He doesn't have any means of getting himself into his opponent's economy. So while he is just throwing minerals and gas at minerals and gas, sniping a few Immortals here and there, I don't necessarily think it's worth it, because then you have PartinG on the other side sniping workers, and he loses the Oracle, but he's able to keep his opponent's harvester count from eclipsing his significantly, and he has that observer because of the lack of his opponent's robotics tech, and he does have clear vision. So I think if PartinG is able to hold this off after a time, he will just come out of it with a significant advantage. He's constantly losing units, and Classic is losing a few of his own, but it's not really making a major difference on the net. It's just overall back and forth exchanges, and I think Classic has to make up his mind. He has to be thinking of a transition or some form of aggression in the event that he doesn't micro well. He does micro well at the beginning of that fight, snipes yet another Immortal, but it seems like PartinG has an endless supply of them as he tries to pull back a second one. Those Zealots are being very disruptive in the face of the Stalkers, and now it seems as though Classic has been repelled yet again, but every time he's going in and he's sniping another Immortal, of which there are only 2 and no others in production, so it doesn't seem like PartinG will be able to indefinitely replenish his forces. He loses another Immortal there, but Classic is down to only 5 Stalkers and that 1 Sentry, and he doesn't seem to be warping in any reinforcements. So it seems like now he'll have to make up his mind to pull back, and he does do so. Economically, our 2 players are fairly even. Classic does, in fact, have that Harvester advantage, and PartinG is still on 2 feet. PartinG is still in this game, and he is building an Immortal. He made the better tech choice out of the gate, I would argue, with the Oracle, because at first it was repelled, but it was a thorn in the side of his opponent. Even if you are a Korean Protoss player, who are some of the best at microing, maybe not close to the Terrans, but still, overall, if we're considering a general picture. By the way, as a side note, another Oracle coming in here. It does die to the Stalkers, as you just saw, but gets a few probes on its way, and that Harvester count is now dead even. Anyway, as I was saying before, if you are even among the best, even if you are a Korean Protoss player, if you're trying to make a push with those Stalkers, you are going to be distracted, and you will not be at 100% if there is an Oracle in your face. It does not matter how good you are at the game. Some will just be able to look, just briefly divert their attention, deal with the Oracle, or send a few units to deal with the Oracle, and not worry about it. And that's, for the most part, what Classic did. But regardless of your skill, there's still going to be that certain percentage of your attention taken away from your own base or from your pushing force. So that's why I feel like Classic was not able to win definitively with his Blink Stalkers. Because either he would be completely crippled by losing too many probes by not paying enough attention to his base, or he would lose too many Stalkers by not paying enough attention to his attacking force, which he's trying to rally yet again. So I think, as much as I thought it was a mistake off the bat, which overall it may still be, let me know your opinion, I think it was still smart overall to go for that Stargate play. But, however, Classic got an excellent series of force fields there and is able to snipe yet another Immortal. This man is the Immortal Slayer. He goes all in there and snipes another. The Photon Overcharge will hold him back for now, I think. But these Stalkers are doing devastating damage. He does have to get out of there because that Photon Overcharge is just going to cost him minerals. He loses another Zealot after he lost a few sentries to it. But I think that was a good exchange. There's another Immortal coming out and a Photon Cannon coming out of the mineral line of the expansion, the natural, of Classic. Just as a preventative measure, we'll have to see what happens to that. There's a pylon on the edge of the base sniped, and Classic does have an observer, so this does infer robotics facility tech. It's right there, it is natural. So we'll have to see, can he finish off his opponent, because PartinG is not on the ropes economically, but militarily, yes, another Immortal going down. I think Classic just has a bunch of frames in his own practice room of all of the Immortals, or he will have a bunch of frames in his practice room of all the Immortals that he killed at PartinG, but this battle is getting quite tense. There is a terse engagement here between the Stalkers and the Stalkers of Classic. Some probes going down, another Immortal is killed. The Photon Overcharge is going to do a lot to disrupt these Stalkers. Probes were pulled before by PartinG. I was just too engrossed in the thought of all the frames of killed Immortals, and their probes are pulled yet again. Can Classic close out this game? I do not yet think so, because those probes are disruptive, and the Stalkers are able to force their corresponding blue Stalkers to blink out of the base. Two more Stalkers blink away from the natural, and Classic has yet again been repelled. This man really wants to win off the back of these Blink Stalkers. There is one Oracle of PartinG held back there behind the main base, which does not in fact have a Photon Cannon, but it does have a few Blink Stalkers. Here's another engagement. Will that Immortal die, as have dozens of its brethren before it? I do not yet think so. A few Zealots coming in from PartinG. They are not charge upgraded, and I think Classic could charge upgrade his. He could indeed, and that would really do a lot to disrupt his opponent, who does not have Blink. I don't know if he has the resources for it or the attention. Now, the sentries are at the front, which is quite dangerous for them. They will be sniped very quickly. The military distribution here is even in terms of numbers of units, but there are two Immortals there out of PartinG. Classic smartly withdraws, and there is an observer over his forces. I'm not sure where his own observer is, but he will have to deal with his opponents. His own observer is over his opponent's army, so it's just a little paradox there. Two Immortals out, and these Immortals are keeping PartinG in the game. Much as they are being sniped, it takes a good number of hits from opposing Stalkers to snipe Immortals. And will that robotics facility die? Yes. So that was a very smart move from Classic. He did lose a few Stalkers, but he cut off his opponent's production of his perhaps most crucial unit in his defense in this game. That was a very bright move, but can Classic withstand the counter push coming out of PartinG? Because he just sniped that production building, which was quite critical to his opponent's longevity. But now, as I said in videos long ago cast, which you might want to go back and watch, there's my theory of kicking up the Hornet's Nest. When you do significant damage to your opponent in such a way that you kill a robotics facility, or you kill a bunch of probes, or you destroy a base or a bunch of production buildings, but they still have an army, you're kicking the Hornet's Nest. And if you can withstand the sting, you usually win the game. But sometimes, and I find more often than not, when the player kicks the Hornet's Nest, their opponent is able to win just off the power of that sting, that corresponding counterattack that comes right after the major move, and I'm not sure what will happen here. Classic snipes that Immortal with some smart force fields, but the Zealots are pouring in through that little hole on the left-hand side. It looks like they're going in to disrupt Classic's army, and they are wreaking some havoc on those sentries who are yet again poorly positioned. But this time there's an Immortal from Classic. We're fairly even in terms of our forces. We've got 3, 6, 8, 9 Stalkers, 1 Immortal, 4 Zealots pouring in now, and a Sentry, where his opponent has only 8 Stalkers. I forgot how to count in SC2. 8 Stalkers, but 5 Sentries, a handful of Zealots, and an Immortal of his own. So it's fairly even. There is that blink on Classic, but PartinG is getting a Colossus back at his own base. So he bounced back and then some. And it looks like his Hornets are going back to their rebuilt nest. So instead of that whole chaotic engagement that we see, I find more often than not from NA players will tend to go all in with that Hornet's Nest analogy. When the player's counterattacking, they will throw everything they have. They won't even bother to try to fall back in a robotics bay. But I guess the damage was not necessarily so traumatic on PartinG as to necessitate an all-in. I mean, he only lost the robotics facility and a few other production building, or a few other forces of his own, and maybe a couple probes here and there. Speaking of which, Workers Guild is greatly in favor of PartinG. So that Oracle play, I am eating my words and I am enjoying them, and they are filling my stomach because that Oracle play has been quite phenomenal. Extended Thermal Lance is coming out of PartinG. He is ready to come at his opponent with some new tech. So it's like a tech exchange here. This is a Cold War. Each side of this PvP comes out with a new technology to each battle. There's first the Oracles, then there's the Immortals of first the Oracles of PartinG, then the Immortals of Classic. Look, I think it was PartinG that had both. So this is a pretty one-sided Cold War. I don't know where I was going with that thought. It was PartinG with the Oracle, PartinG with the Immortals, but oh, Classic did have the blink, so it was a Cold War. Forgive me, the analogy was decent. Forgive me. Again, there is a Templar Archive. So this Cold War is truly a Cold War. I'm allowed to say it. There is a Templar Archives and Weapons Level 2 out of Classic. A little bit of an exchange there, but nothing of a special note. There are 2 Colossi out for PartinG, and there was a hallucinated Phoenix somewhere. I don't know if you guys see it, but do lines in the middle of the screen vibrate when I move the camera like this? That's what I'm seeing. Let me know. I may have to fix it or look into what it may be. Maybe the settings are too high. Maybe it's just poor frames per second. Let me know if you're seeing that right now, a little wave in the middle of the screen. PartinG is moving out. There is an Archon being made out of Classic. Smart move. One of the Colossi being hallucinated. I am a huge fan of that. And an Archon being hallucinated off of Classic. This is a smart engage. There's the Time Warp there, slowing a few of the Stalkers, but not very many. Another Immortal Classic skill. So PartinG is trying to get some frames of his own of slaying Immortals. He gets a few nice shots on his opponent's army with those extended thermal lances, which can wreak so much havoc in PvP. He's getting yet a few more excellent spreads of those shots, but here's an Immortal coming in from the side. Smart little disruption tactic, but it is promptly dealt with by PartinG. He's dancing around there, not sure where to go. He still has the hallucinating Colossus and Observer control of the skies. There's the Archon promptly dying, and I think this may well be GG. Classic is down about 20 supply. He has a nice high ground position here, but there's the Time Warp again. I hope that's what it's called, and the extended thermal lances are just completely destroying his army, so this may well be the game right here. I don't know if Classic has what it takes to deal with this force. I would be quite surprised indeed. There's a couple probes going down. It looks like this third is going to be completely destroyed. PartinG does not have a third of his own, but it does not matter because a non-functional third costing you all sorts of money and lost probes is a lot worse than a no third at all. There's the dance out of PartinG. He's confident that he has claimed this game, and Oxa Classic is down to 38 supply. So there we go. He calls the GG, and that, my friends, is the game. So in my opinion, it was a good PvP to come back into in terms of casting. I hope you enjoyed it. I certainly did. PartinG did win the series with this match, and he went on to, I believe, lose in the semifinals, because I know the finals was between Maru and Life. Maybe I'll grab a few games from those rounds, because this was just from the Team Liquid thread. I checked which one was most upvoted, and this was said one of the best games of the season, which I'm not sure if I necessarily agree, but it was still a very good game indeed. Excellent micro, excellent Cold War strategies of different technologies, and I hope you enjoyed my coming back. Feel free to leave feedback, rip into me if you must. Let me know if you see a little bit of a disruption in the middle and top of the screen here because of frame rate or some other issue, and just generally give me some critical feedback. I appreciate it, guys. I will catch you next time. This is Austin, out.